Kia ora everyone, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly, I'll be your host. Thank you very much for choosing to stick around and have a look and see what we're doing at the moment. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you very much, we salute you. And if you're listening to us through our podcast platforms, welcome as well. Normally I have my colleague Andrew with me, and normally what we do is we sort of talk a little bit about the artists that you're about to see or hear. Unfortunately, life happens, and sometimes we have to make changes on the fly. So Andrew couldn't be with me in the studio today, so I'm going to do this as a solo. Andrew, mate, hope that you're doing okay, and we look forward to seeing you back in the studio real soon. The guest that we've got lined up, Fox Levine. Wow, what an absolutely amazing story he's had. Young guy, really, really young, mid-20s, but man, what a journey he's been on. And we cover so much in this conversation. It's really, really good. We talk about his, his background growing up in America and his parents' desire to move to New Zealand, and how they've been living in whangarei the whole time that they've been living here. We talk about his influences when he was in high school, and we talk about how he's gone from being having mentors that are teachers all the way through to him being a tutor now, and him passing on his years of experience and knowledge to kids of their own as well. There's a lot of really interesting stuff here, and for someone that's so incredibly young too. I think that one of the big takeaways I got from this conversation was just that, someone can be so young but still have so much life experience and have so much wisdom and knowledge, and be able to talk about things so easily. It's probably the biggest thing for me. That's easily one of the big things I found. I've known Fox personally for a couple of years now, and I've always really admired his work. He's just a super cool guy. You get him started on a topic, and man, he loves to go. He is just so passionate, and you really do see that in the podcast as well, which is really, really cool. So, without further ado, let's sit down and have a conversation with Fox Levine. It's cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Northland Artists Conversation. My name is Mark Kelly. I will be your host today. I am joined by local whangarei artist, Fox Levine. Fox, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Fox, you're our second guest, so super cool.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So we obviously had our first guest, whose podcast will be going out live this week, which is great. Available on YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Find us there. And then we'll be putting yours out next week as well. So we're going to do one podcast a week. So really, really stoked to have you on board. And I guess for me, this is a little bit more of a more personal podcast, because for people that don't know at home, the opening credits that you see, Fox actually did the artwork for that, and so to get you on board and in for this was something that I really, really wanted to do, because it was my way of saying thank you for being so cool and actually doing that for us. So it's a huge honor for me to have you here.
Well, I was about to say the same thing to you. Honestly, it was all sort of growing so much while I had been like out of touch with the situation, and I was like, oh wow, This is a real event that's going on. I wonder if I can still be interviewed. So I'm glad to be here for sure.
Absolutely. And, we're certainly grateful that you were able to take time out of your schedule.
A very, very busy schedule.
Yeah. You're a busy guy. Because you've got some really cool things coming up later on in the year, which we'll get to a little bit later on. One thing we sort of like to do is we sort of like to cover off a little bit about a person's background. Because, as a creative myself, I always enjoy learning about an artist's journey. Like, because obviously you're not a Kiwi.
No.
You're
not yet, but
not yet.
yeah, I'm from Virginia, in the U.S., so it's a little state sort of in the middle of the East Coast, and I moved here, almost 4 years ago, which is kind of surreal. November it'll be 4 years, and I haven't lived anywhere but Whangarei, which has been an interesting experience for sure. I haven't really seen much else of New Zealand, unfortunately. I'd like to, but I definitely have had to really put down roots here for sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So you moved over from Virginia, and did you come over by yourself? Or?
No, so my parents, way back in the 80s, they lived here when they were early 20s, on I guess a working holiday kind of situation.
Sure.
Fell in love with it. Went back home, had me, and they always planned to retire here at some point or another. And it just so happened that when I was 19, and I'm 25 for reference now, they got the chance, and they took it. And I had not moved out by that point. And they said, come with us. You'd be crazy not to. And I had no idea just how right they were. Because, it was 2018 when we got here, and that was, just a couple years before COVID.
Yep.
And we, Trump was still in office. And well, I mean, that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, it was lucky that we ended up here when we did. And I was joined as well by my fiance Rowan, who kind of intersected with us from the UK. And we all it was exactly at the same time, because I'd known him for years just online, and was like, hey, why don't you come and spend some time in New Zealand, because it's pretty easy for a Brit to get a visa here back then.
Yeah. I don't know if it's like that now.
But yeah, and that's kind of where I've been. And between then and now, you were there for a lot of it, kind of instrumental in a lot of it. But it's difficult to find work as someone migrating to New Zealand, especially if you don't have a lot of qualifications, which I don't. I didn't go to uni. I graduated high school, took a gap year, and gap year, which turned into a gap 5 years, and then a gap 6, 7, 8, 9, and we're almost up on a decade now. Yeah, good Lord. And I intended to go to art school back home. I applied and got into a few. Okay. And was raring to go. And art school is between 40 to 60K a year.
Now that 40 to 60K, that's
US dollars.
US dollars.
Yes,
so
a year.
For reference, that's between sort of 80 to 100 grand. For
a year.
A year.
For 1 year. It's usually 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so you walk out of there with almost $500,000 worth of debt.
Oh yeah, and the thing is too is that you pay that to go to art school in the U.S.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for what they teach you, but for who you meet and the connections you establish.
Right. Yep. Okay.
But establishing connections only gets you so far. Luck is a lot of it. Yeah. And so you very well might end up with that amount of debt with not a whole lot, in comparison, to match up with it.
Sure.
My high school principal, I went to a really tiny high school.
Awesome. Yep.
Tiny. Maybe 30, 40 kids in the whole school.
Wow.
It was in an old office building in the middle of historic Charlottesville, Virginia.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was great. It was a great experience. But the principal there, Sarah Johnson, if you're watching this by any chance, hi. She was great.
Hi, Sarah.
Well, hi, MJ. She was the art teacher as well.
Okay, yeah,
and,
cool.
She had gone to art school, and she was still paying off her student loans as the principal of the high school.
Okay. So, I mean, there's obviously quite a few differences between New Zealand in terms of our education or higher education, and then America's higher education. But I really would like to sort of talk about the high school, because those are sort of the formative years,
Yeah.
right? For me, the high school was really where I discovered my love of drama. I did my first proper stage play when I was in fourth form. I don't know what that is in years now. That's year something. There's young people that are recording.
How old?
I was 14.
Okay. That gives me better.
I was 14, and it was the very first adaptation of the book Lord of the Flies.
Oh, fun.
And it was really, really cool. So I got my first real proper taste of like having not like a lead role, but like like sort of later on down the call sheet. And it was, for me, it was just amazing. And that's where my love of theatre started. So I would do that. I'd be on stage, but then I just wanted to be involved in anything. So it was like backstage or lighting or sound or anything like that. So for me, my high school years were incredibly formative. Talk me through what your high school years was like. Were you strictly art, or did you do music or theatre? What sort of made up your experience?
Well, honestly, high school itself, although it definitely was formative, I think it's more accurate to kind of sum up the formation of my identity as a creative person just through, I guess, up and through high school years.
Sure. Yeah.
High school itself was really rough for me. As it is for a lot of people, for a lot of reasons.
It wasn't easy on me.
And I'm grateful for the teachers I had too, because they really helped me through it.
Yep.
And in high school, because it was such a, so I went to a private school, and it was kind of by the skin of my parents' teeth, because I grew up rurally. I grew up on a farm in the middle of rural Virginia.
Yep.
Charlottesville being the nearest town. The public school in that district was, let's just say it would have been really rough on me.
Okay. Yeah.
And so my folks kind of picked up on that initially and were like, well, let's see what we can swing in town.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I'm glad that I did, because it's called Renaissance School, and it's called Renaissance School because there are multiple tracks. If I'm remembering this right, you can pick that. I'm not going to remember the names of the people they chose, but it was different sort of like Renaissance men.
Oh, sure. Yep.
To either focus on heavily on the sciences, on the arts, or just general track. I, of course, immediately jumped at the please let me focus heavily on the arts. And it basically lets you replace a math class with a science class. No, not at all. Help. Math or science class with an art class. And I was like, I don't do math at all. I don't do math at all. I don't know how to do math. And I would do anything to stop doing math.
Yeah.
I have no bad feelings towards science. Science is cool. But I was like, yes, and so I can take like 2, 3, maybe more art classes. And that was just what I did. I really, really dug into that through high school, and I'm glad to have had that opportunity to do that.
What sort of art classes were you focusing in?
It was really studio art.
Okay.
And it's because it was so small, there wasn't really a lot to like pick from. But it was pretty well rounded, and I'm really grateful for the classes that I was able to take there.
Cool.
And I'm grateful for the quality, because a lot of the teachers at the school were professors. They were doctors.
Oh wow.
Like two of them were Doc and then last name as their honorific.
Oh, so it's like the DR, their name, and then a bunch of letters at the end.
Doc Mitchell, Doc Nell.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's what
actual
it's called.
Doc.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, and we had this gorgeous art studio on the office building. The top floor was this beautiful open space with these like it was such an inspiring place, like right in the middle of it's a city. Charlottesville's a city, but it's if you know about Charlottesville, it feels like a town more than anything.
For people that sort of don't have a frame of reference, Whangarei would Charlottesville be bigger or smaller? Bigger. Okay.
Yes, it is technically a city, like a city, but it's historic too. The second I moved here, actually going through the downtown area of Whangarei, the little pedestrian area, Charlottesville has one of the most I don't know if it's famous, but a very well known pedestrian mall in like across the U.S. It's this gorgeous brick area where they've stopped the cars from going through entirely, and it's just trees and shops, and
oh, wow.
it's Charlottesville's such a nice little artsy town, and I'm definitely like growing up in the country and being able to take so much inspiration from the Blue Ridge Mountains and my backyard was like the woods. And I'm an only child, and we had farm animals and all that, and so I was like, all I could do was make up. I did a lot of that too. To get into that, I'm glad I went to Renaissance school because I don't want to call myself a Renaissance man, but I can't seem to pick which kind of creative section I love most. I occupy the space of looking at the art for the podcast. That's what I do most often.
Okay.
That's done digitally, and I've been doing digital art since I was 13.
Okay.
I got my first tablet at that point. And it's just honestly for ease.
Okay.
I love painting. I love drawing. I love charcoal. And I emulate all of that digitally. But and I really I was like, I made up stories about dragons in the woods. I was really inspired by like fantasy and all that growing up.
Yeah.
And I just brought that with me into high school, where there's a senior thesis.
Okay.
And it's a thesis. It's a real thesis. It's like 25, 24 pages, and it's a serious project.
It's a decent chunk of work.
It's a serious project, which I did in one night.
Okay. But
quite literally.
Here's the interesting
the writing portion.
What was your passing grade?
It was fine. I think it was an A-.
Nice.
Yeah, it was fine.
Out of essentially one night's writing.
Well, it was one night's writing and 1 year's worth of
work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I did it on the theoretical biology of dragons, and I will never forget that. And I made sure I could punctuate it and maybe pad out the length with as many drawings of dragons as I could.
Brilliant.
And it was so fun. It was done in this faux naturalist style.
Yeah.
Where I pretended I was a field worker going out and studying these dragons, like I would have done as a kid, but more serious because you're 18 and you're in your 12th year of school.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's to this day I'm still so proud of it. But that was the kind of school that I went to, and I was really, really lucky to be able to be there for sure.
So obviously, as an artist who has you're obviously comfortable working across multiple mediums, favoring digital art more or specializing?
I think just favoring illustrative, sort of concept-y. I guess I favor digital art only in practice.
Okay.
In spirit, I am equally at home. Drawing, painting, all of that.
Yep.
And to me, a digital tool like a tablet is just a tool. I know it's technically a medium, but depending on how you use it, it really is just a tool to do any of the other kinds of art that you can do. Watercolor, as I emulated in the
you were saying itself.
Oil paints, charcoal, etc. You can get some really, really interesting, really interesting, outcomes, interesting.
So you get like different results just with like different things, because you can obviously cross blend a lot of the different mediums as well.
Yes, of course, mixed medium. Yeah, and it's because it's not limited by the constraints of the traditional media, that you don't have to wait an hour for the friggin' oil paint, more than an hour, the oil paint to dry. You don't have to. Yeah. You don't have to worry about oversaturating the paper when you're doing watercolor, and it looks really convincing. And it can feel really organic. Without that, it's freeing.
Nice.
And it honestly, the reason why I got into digital art so young, I'm a child of the internet, and I saw initially, even in the U.S., just being rural, I was like, I can't sell to people. I can't get to people without the internet. Yeah. And I can't reliably communicate my art to people without it being digital.
Yep.
And back then I remember there was this website called Wajas, which is a little, it was ancient, this middle of nowhere corner of the internet site where you just like had little pet wolves. Yep. And that was where I first discovered people selling art online.
Oh wow. Okay. Yep.
In the little forum section of that. If this is an okay segue.
No, go for gold.
Yeah. And I remember seeing these older people in the forums selling commissions of, they're like, I can draw an icon for you to use on the site. I can draw your pet. I can draw your favorite character for, this much, Waja's coins or whatever they used. I don't remember.
So like an early iteration of Fiverr.
Well, kind of more like just a community of, because like people on this site would naturally be sort of creatively inclined.
Sure.
And it was literally just a forum within that, like an actual, old school forum.
Yep.
Message board forum, and people would just, because you have to express yourself online visually.
Yes,
you have to make your own identity, and you kind of need art to do that.
You do.
And I immediately was like, oh, I want to be here. I want to do this. And so I remember I think I sold one commission non-digitally. And it was a marker drawing that I cut out on a piece of printer paper and took a really horrible photo of. And the person who bought that from me must have been like just tickled by it because this kid is like, you know what I mean?
Don't commission art all of a sudden. Yeah.
Well, no, like it's just like, must have been like, oh, like I'm gonna give you your first business. You can draw me a little cat on a square of paper.
Yeah, cool though.
But I was like, I need a tablet. I see these people doing this, and I need to do what they're doing. And so I was insistent. That was the present that I got when I turned 13. Was a Wacom Intuos. I think it was an Intuos.
Yep.
An Intuos tablet. And there are pictures of me. I should send them in.
Yeah, send them. We'll edit them into the video. Absolutely.
Sitting there, absolutely feral, holding this thing.
Yeah.
I think I'm even like biting the corner of it with my teeth because I'm 13 and I'm insane. But it's great. I was overjoyed, and it was from that moment on. During high school, I was really productive.
So, sort of moving on from there, you've had your first commission. You've got your first little paycheck that's come through. You've sort of touched a little bit about some influences. Where do you draw your inspiration from? Because one of the things I like about being an artist in general is your ability to just open up your brain and have something pour out, and then being able to take it from initial concept in your head to actual end product. So for you, where do you sort of find yourself drawing inspiration from? Because obviously artists draw it from a wide range.
Yeah. And when I was first sort of mulling over the general topics that are covered on this, I kind of got a little apprehensive of the who are my inspirations, and I definitely do have who's. Looking back, it's very, I don't know, everybody and their uncle knows Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki. I assume. If you don't correct me,
no, not every. So who is
Studio Ghibli? Is
it Ghibli?
It is Ghibli.
I always thought it was Ghibli.
I thought so too.
Yeah,
it's Studio Ghibli.
Okay, Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, it's a Japanese animation studio. Very, very well respected, long running, well known. Hayao Miyazaki at their head. And he's a master of visual storytelling.
For reference, what are some of the big films or releases that they've done?
Spirited Away, My Neighbor Totoro,
Howl's Moving
Castle.
Okay, right, yeah.
Gosh, everything and everything. Princess Mononoke, Nausicaa, et cetera. Like,
okay.
And honestly, Princess Mononoke was something that, like within that group of things, really, really, really spoke to me when I was younger.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And I to this day am actively. I feel like I keep like a library of current and past inspirations in my head, and a lot of them aren't who's. That's why I said that. A lot of them are themes and events and styles and all that. But Princess Mononoke will always be one of the foundational ones, I feel like, to me, just in the themes that it covers, and especially in just I've always really appreciated how, because I want to communicate with my art. I want to communicate the ideas I'm trying to get across in a way that is touching and that is meaningful, and that is, I don't know, that really, really gets into you. And
so okay, so I'm sort of guessing that those are kind of like the core themes for you. What sort of themes do you like touching on the most that evoke an emotion, or you have like a, because some artists, you can look at it at a piece of work and go, I have no clue what I'm staring at, but from what you're saying, you sort of like to have an emotional connection or response from people viewing what you do. So what are the sort of underlying themes that you like to put into your work?
And like, to an extent, I was sort of thinking about, like, and that, like, Miyazaki is a master of communicating visually, but I'm not necessarily inspired by, although I am as a person, but in my art by what he's communicating so much as how.
Yeah.
I want to be that effective of an artistic communicator. But what I'm communicating, I guess, is I guess not on the darker side of things, but my art. You may not know it by looking at what I've done for this podcast. I tend to lean towards more horror themes in my art, or at least darker themes. In that I think that sort of deeper human emotions, more nuanced emotions are hard to capture and hard to communicate like that. And I think like proper, if you look at a piece of art and you feel sort of slightly unnerved and you don't really know exactly why. Mm-hmm. For instance, that's something that I strive for in a lot of my work.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
But it's like not just that. It's like whatever I'm setting out to. Sorry, I'm gesturing so much.
That's okay.
whatever I'm setting out to communicate, I want to do it effectively.
Yep. Okay.
Whatever it is. And for the art for the podcast, what I'm communicating for that is a feeling of, I don't know, freedom, curiosity, creativity. I wanted to express that, through my like freer brush strokes and lighter colors, and you know what I mean, sort of like warmer tones. And
yeah. So it's got a warm, inviting sort of feel to it. Yeah.
Like I want to learn and master the language of visual communication, I guess, which sounds so technical because it feels so like natural and intrinsic as I'm doing it. And I couldn't really exactly tell you why. But yeah, like with stuff like Studio Ghibli, and that sort of, I hesitate to just say anime in general. But a lot of older anime styles, a lot of older manga, I just have always loved the detail and the level of love. It's funny, like anime does this thing over and over again, where it focuses more on how something feels than how it looks. And it's this, you'll if you have watched any anime or read much manga at all.
Oh, well, for me, having sat down with Aki last week, and she bought those wonderful books with all the recycled paper and the different stories in there. That, I watched manga films back in the days when video stores were a thing.
I remember video stores.
So I saw Akira and Yorosuke Doji, Legend of the Overfiend. And, those were kind of the, Ghost in the Shell. Those were the kind of the ones that kind of stuck with me.
Oh, yeah. Akira is still like a huge, that's inspiration for me as well. Just, and when I say they focus more on how things feel than how they look, it's just the level of emotion that can come across when it's not that they're ignoring how things actually look in real life by leaning on that really heavily stylized sort of niche. It's that when you look at, for instance, like a character in a Ghibli movie crying, or anime in general, the tears are huge.
So they're sort of overemphasized.
Yeah, but not like huge, like not like silly, but when you look at and other people have pointed this out too, when you look at Chihiro crying in the one scene in Spirited Away, she's just got these like massive like beads of water coming down her face, and she's bright red, and she's just like choking on these mouthfuls of like onigiri, and it's like that's how it feels, when you're really, really torn up about something.
Yeah.
It's just something that I always look at with stars in my eyes, of like, wow, I want to show that,
One of the organisations that proudly supports the Northland Artists Conversation is Creative Northland. I'm going to take just a moment to talk to you guys about it. Creative Northland have been absolutely vital in helping this project get off the ground through its infancy and all the way through to where we are now. We couldn't have done what we've done without their assistance. What we suggest is that if you're a creative person and you haven't heard of Creative Northland, we highly recommend that you reach out to them. Creative Northland, simply do a Google search. They're the top result. These guys are wonderful. They're all creatives in their own way, and they're all very, very well respected throughout the industry that they work in. They're very hardworking, absolutely committed and dedicated to helping the creative people throughout Northland, whether it be through simple things like starting up a project, all the way through to putting on like an exhibition, for example, all the way through to working out how they can start turning what they do into a business. It's all free advice. They give really, really good guidelines and helpful assistance to make sure that you, as a creative, are able to get the most out of what you do. Creative Northland, highly recommend them. Check them out. So, I mean, you've got the Studio Ghibli.
Yes.
Pronounce that, thank you. And obviously, we're also sort of talking a little bit beforehand as well. You mentioned someone that I'm a relatively big fan of as well, Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
Sleepy Hollow, great film, that just dark and gothic, super cool. Reminds me of Poe. Edgar Allan Poe, love that sort of stuff. But then you've got like the hyper-realism of Alice in Wonderland, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's some sort of influence.
So those were past my, well, not the first one, but those were past my sort of, like when I fell off the Tim Burton wagon.
Feeling old.
No, as in I'm feeling old.
Oh,
as in Alice in
okay.
Wonderland and all that was when I was in high school, so I was past that era at that point.
You'd gone through your Tim Burton phase at that point.
It was when I was, what really was interesting to me when I was a kid was Nightmare Before Christmas type stuff.
Oh, the stop motion stuff.
Yes. And that was what was really an influence to me when I was quite young. This was like 10, 11, 12. But this was really when I was like, and it's interesting too, because I was like doodling in the margins of my school notes at that time. The most like advanced tools that I had were some alcohol markers, and maybe some slightly nicer pens. And you know, when I was 12, I was sort of drawing like spooky, and ironically, I did draw a lot of like Alice in Wonderland inspired stuff, but not from the same. Maybe a premonition.
You're drawing like Jack.
Yeah, like
from
exactly.
the Night Before Christmas and stuff.
Very like lanky, sharp edges, kind of spooky looking forms and stuff, and that was really my niche when I was very young.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've expanded. It's still in there. It's another seed in my inspiration library. But it's not my main drive anymore. But where was it help? In Nightmare Before Christmas type stuff.
Yeah.
I really loved the the shape language of that too.
Right. Yeah.
And Tim Burton, like the and horror in general. I've always been a fan of horror films, horror comics.
Favorite horror movie?
Favorite horror movie? Oh, you've got me on the spot.
Or at least top 3.
Oh no, that's worse.
Okay.
Gosh. I was going to give you some of my favorite horror comics.
Okay.
Junji Ito is he's definitely an inspiration for sure.
Cool.
He's a very, very well-known horror manga artist. And you know, he's responsible for Uzumaki, you know, which is the and the Enigma Amagata Fault, which are these, he does these like these grotesque, intricate, hyper real almost, like pen drawings of and I was lucky enough actually to meet him in person when I went to Overload in 2019.
Where was Overload held?
Auckland.
Oh wow! Okay.
During the measles outbreak, and that was
wow.
We went down there with masks and everything.
And how funny how we're back there,
right?
there now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's surreal. But my partner Rowan has been more of a horror fan than I am, and kind of actually like helped introduce me to a few other things too.
Okay.
And both of us were massive fans of him and are massive fans of him. And I helped So yeah, I do costuming, I do theater, I do music and all that, and I did a cosplay for Rowan of one of Junji Ito's main characters, and we went around with him in that, and we happened to stumble into Junji Ito just wandering around the con floor, who was a massive fan of Rowan's outfit and asked to take a picture with him.
Wow.
And that was the best moment of both of our lives.
Wow, how cool.
And it was really, he's such a nice guy. It was really a really fun experience, because then watching the interview with him after that, watching him draw live, and hearing him talk about his inspirations really gave me a lot of inspiration.
Yeah, cool.
He takes a lot from mundane, everyday objects and experiences. He shared a factoid that he used to be not a dentist, but he used to like make like fittings and crowns and do that intricate work in that.
Oh, like dental molding and stuff. Yeah. Okay.
Which is kind of spooky to me as is, but he was like something, that intricacy lent itself to what he does now.
The sort of fine detailing.
And one of the most infamous ones of Uzumaki is like spirals. And he's like, how can I make spirals horrifying? And he sure did. And very effectively too.
Nice.
And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with Uzumaki.
Yeah.
When you're meeting him and you're hearing him talk.
Junji Ito is the mangaka.
Okay. Sorry.
Uzumaki is the manga.
Uzumaki's the
Junji
manga.
Ito is the...
Junji Ito
yes.
is the creator.
Yes.
Okay. So you're watching him draw,
yes.
You're listening to him speak, and as he's talking, you're going, oh wow, there's a whole lot of other influences I'd never even thought to consider. And that's probably one of the really good things about this podcast.
It's contagious.
Yeah. You kind of, you're like, oh, I heard this podcast, it was really, really cool, and they reference these sorts of things. I'll dive down that rabbit hole and see what they've got as well. So no, that's really cool.
Yeah, like I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. It's strange how you kind of think of things like that. Now we sort of touched on it a little bit before. You graphic illustration, but comfortable in all mediums. But we didn't really touch on anything outside of art.
Yeah, visual art, yeah.
Yeah. What other sorts of creative outputs have you had?
Well, I think it would be easier to say which I haven't. One being sculpture.
Yeah.
I don't think in 3D. And the other being graphic design, because Illustrator is a nightmare for me. Other than that, I've been playing piano since I was 5, maybe earlier. Picked up ukulele in high school. I've been singing and doing theater for as long as I can remember. I've been writing for as long as I can remember. I honestly just, and that's been one of my biggest issues. I applied to Massey College of Creative Arts, which I was supposed to start earlier this year. There's been kind of
that's Massey and Palmerston North.
Yeah, no, Massey and Wellington.
Wellington, yes, okay.
And there's kind of been a whole lot of hullabaloo this year with all kinds of catastrophic.
Yeah.
It's been a rough year.
Yeah.
It's been a rough year and it's not even halfway over.
Yeah. Well, pretty close to halfway.
Not yet. There's still time.
Yeah.
But
Bon Jovi says, "Whoa, we're halfway there."
Oh gosh. But
dad jokes, people.
Oh gosh. It's not that much of a dad joke, but one of the portfolio reviewer's main, not complaints, he said it's great. I can see you're very skilled, but you don't have any sort of continuity between your work. And I'm like, I understand that completely. I cop to that. Sometimes I see it as a strength in that I, at any given moment, can kind of just latch on to a style or feeling or an impulse. Because I have ADHD and it just influences everything I do. And go with it. And it can be very cool in that I can be kind of a creative chameleon. But in other ways, it does sort of lead me to seem like I might not have a super strong voice when you look at the whole body of my work.
Okay.
But really, it's more of an issue of I just can't pick. I genuinely so I had a major surgery in February, and after which I had some unrelated lymphedema that has gone away
some
since.
Complications.
Yeah.
Sure.
But basically, my right hand was unusable. I could barely feed myself, and I had a good week where I was just heartbroken because I'm like, I'm never going to play piano again. How am I going to express what I express playing piano?
Are you a lefty or a righty?
I'm a righty.
Okay, so even
that was my first thought.
You're not only playing piano, but your ability to hold a pen and that sort of stuff as well.
Well, I mean, I had some work that I was doing that I still need to be doing now.
Yeah.
I'm catching up on a lot of stuff.
Okay.
That I intended. I'm like, oh, I'll heal right up after this, and I'll get back up to oh no.
Yeah. You said a really interesting phrase that I really, really like, and it's one of those sorts of things that I think some artists do really, really well, and some artists just kind of stick within their niche. Creative chameleon. It's a really, really good phrase because, yes, there's a lot of artists that'll be, they can do multiple disciplines, for example, and then you've got those sort of artists that will find a discipline that is kind of, they get associated with that, whether it be like photography or
I did photography too.
Quentin Tarantino, for example. He's got a Quentin Tarantino movie when you see one because it's his style, right?
Calling card almost. Yeah.
But creative chameleon, it's such a good expression.
It's me trying not to be down on myself.
We don't need to be.
Well, there's a lot of pressure, and this is just in my online microcosm, but if you're in that microcosm, then you know what I'm talking about, to have an art style. And it's because when you look at the masters, when you look at Tezuka, when you look at, like the people that we look up to, like this is this person, this is what they're known for, this is what they do. They have a style typically. You can recognize it. They're really recognizable.
Yeah.
And so there's been kind of I think it's an unfair pressure on young, I'm not in that category anymore, but like younger artists, teen artists.
Younger than me.
Well, teenagers to find and stick with an art style, which is, I think I used to be really, really bothered by it in that I because I was just so inspired by so many different things and I wanted to try out so many different things that I was like, I don't have an art style, I'm not good enough. I'm not a real artist. And I think that people naturally have a degree of consistency or they don't. I think too much consistency can be a bad thing.
It's interesting that you say that about forming an art style because one of the sort of things that I found in even starting up this podcast and having conversations with other artists that aren't recorded is for me, it's sort of interesting to hear an artist's journey because one thing I found that was really, really fascinating was you would have these artists that would be like, I am Bob Smith and I am known as a photographer. But when, 20 years ago, I was Bob Smith, the musician, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of happens in the middle, and your style naturally changes and evolves over time. So if there's a lot of pressure to have a sort of a one particular set style and type, you could run the risk of being pigeonholed that entire way for your whole life, right?
Or not just that, you run the risk of not growing anymore.
Yeah.
I've seen people that I've known in the past who just were like, I'm going to mimic this and that's all I'm going to do ever. And over time, they're like, why am I not improving with my peers? What's wrong? What's wrong with my art? What's wrong with me? I'm only drawing the same thing over and over again. Why aren't I getting better? I actually, I teach an art class in massive air quotes. Cause for the past year and change, I have had one single student that I've done some tutoring with, but it's been such a fun experience, and I really, really love doing that, because it's just I know now why every single art teacher in middle school and high school says, okay, no drawing anime, no drawing cartoons, no drawing this. Yeah. And every single kid is sitting there like, but I want to draw Sailor Moon. Why can't I draw Goku?
Yeah.
And I was maybe not with that exact stuff, but I was sitting there like I want to imitate my favorite webcomic. I want to draw this thing that I love to draw. And it felt mean. Like maybe not mean. Maybe mean is not the right word, but it felt unfair.
Okay.
And I was like, why are you taking away my personality, my creative
Yeah.
expression. But what now that I have taught art, I spend so much time being like don't draw like you know, when you're drawing what you see, draw what you see. It doesn't really, of course it matters how it turns out because art is visual, but it's more important that you are exercising your artistic muscles and that you are gaining new skills and that you're branching out and you're keeping yourself fresh and in the moment and open to, you know, things you might not have noticed than it is that you develop a style, which can be toxic if you just focus on that.
So, having been on both sides of that coin, where you've been the student who's gone, I want to draw, you know, what I like and what I'm comfortable with and what I know, and I know I don't suck at it.
Because it feels good.
Yeah, and you get that instant gratification, right? Yeah. You're like, let me be the best of drawing whatever it is. And then having moved to the other side where you're teaching and you're suddenly going, whatever you're good at, let's not draw that.
Yes, exactly.
Let's push ourselves.
Or even like, I don't know, let's say you are in love with quails for a period of time.
Sure.
And you've drawn quails in this cute little style over and over again. Let's do them with charcoal. You know, let's do them in a medium you haven't touched before.
Yeah.
And I think experimenting with different mediums is crucial. You know, it's not always cost effective. It's definitely limiting, which is why I just bring and let people use my stuff because, you know, I'm just like that. I can't not. But you know, even if you've just got some like craft paint and a stick, there's an exercise that I love to do where you've got a big piece of paper on the ground, you pick out a stick from outside, you dip the end of it in paint, and you try to draw something with one continuous line from a distance. And it's just like you're using your whole body to draw. You are working within, I think working within constraints too. Helps an artist grow because it's just like, how am I going to make this look like how I want it to look without picking up the stick? And how am I going to control the stick from this far away?
Yeah, okay.
What part of my hand am I going to use to control the stick?
Yeah.
And you figure it out. You learn, you know, it increases your dexterity, which is, you know, just like the basic stuff. But even then, it increases your ability to think out of the box and to think creatively.
I wouldn't have even thought of doing something like that.
And that was something that was done with me when I was in school. Again, which is
one of your art teachers.
Yes.
MJ?
Yep. Which is,
she did that to you.
Yep,
and now you're doing that to your students.
Every time I pull one of my
crazy.
the tricks from high school out of the book, I'm like thinking of you. thinking of everybody out there.
That's awesome though. Man, so essentially, you know, you've taken the knowledge that you learned early on that you may or may not have thought of as relevant. You know, because when you're learning that stuff, you're like, just why?
Yeah.
Why do I even need this?
Exactly.
This is dumb. Just let me, you know, give me pastels or give me watercolors or whatever it is.
Give me what I like to do.
Yeah, let me be comfortable in what I do. But now you're like going, oh,
yes,
that's why we're doing it.
And then I also feel like even then, like I really like, I love tutoring. I love doing small class stuff. I would do it all the time if I could because, I really, and then again, it's just like, it was a small class too, but when you're the principal of a school and also an art teacher, you don't have, you know, endless time to explain to a student exactly why you're telling them to do this and that. But like, I love that. I love to do that. And it's one of my goals too, because my eventual goal is I want to do my degree, at Massey and Wellington. And then I want to, at the tail end of it, add on, some teaching credentials, from next door, Victoria.
I got a great question.
Because I love teaching and I love being able to use my experience, use the wisdom that I've gained, and try my best to improve on it and to explain, you know, to make it easier to grasp.
Yep. I got a really good question for you. So you're still heading off down the line, right?
Presumably, it's either going to happen very, 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 very soon, which
next month, right?
Yeah, maybe if we can find a place. Or next semester, next year.
Well, next year, so that'll be like February, March, right? Yep. Okay, cool. So you're going to go down and you're going to do the arts stuff. So you're going to get the letters after your name and hallelujah, and then you're going to bounce across to Vic Uni, and you're going to go for the teaching part as well. knowing what you knew, knowing what you knew about your teachers growing up, and knowing that's fine. Yeah, we'll all have a cough.
It's not the Rona.
No, knowing what you knew about your teachers growing up, and knowing where you are now. What is your teaching style?
Oh gosh,
I know I love that question.
I don't know. I don't know if there are really. The first thing that came to my mind was dialectical behavioral therapy.
I'm sorry.
It's a type of
slower and in English.
When you ask what's my teaching style, I think of therapy. I think of like DBT, but that's not like an incredibly. I mean, maybe.
What does DBT stand for?
Dialectical behavioral therapy, which I'm not an expert on, and I don't want to talk at length about it because I'm not an expert.
We're not going to talk about it.
But I guess I in terms of it's a very personal approach.
Sure.
And I guess does it sound weak to say really personal? I think it's because I was the problem kid.
Right.
For many reasons.
Yep. Sure.
And I think that it's a really good and powerful tool in my arsenal that I was the kid that's going to give me hell.
So because you were the difficult kid, you were able to easily identify the difficult kid.
And why.
And assist them.
Yes.
And help them.
And understand why. Or do my best to understand why.
Yeah,
because
cool.
I don't know. I don't believe kids are causing problems on purpose at all. Like, everybody has stuff going on for them in their lives. I know that very well. Like I am a lot of minorities at once. And I want to be able to use that to be like more often than not, if a kid is like not coming to class, if a kid is struggling, not there, even getting ornery and, talking back or causing issues like that, there's something up for them.
I mean, if everyone here was able to sort of talk with kids, right? We all have our own set of life skills that we can kind of draw upon, and be able to say, hey, look, I identify with you in these particular ways, right? You're essentially no different because you've gone through your own challenges, right? But you've been strong enough to sort of come out the other side, and I think that's really admirable because being able to draw on personal strengths and then being able to use those strengths to be able to help others is actually a very, very admirable quality. And I think it's definitely the sign of a teacher by trade, right?
I mean, I couldn't see myself, even if I didn't become a teacher, I couldn't see myself doing anything else in my life. I can't see how you can't go through anything rough at all and not come out the other side just thinking about it and thinking, that sucked. How could I make this better for someone else?
Yeah. How can you take away someone's pressure or stress or anxiety or whatever it is they might go through?
At the end of the day, this ties back into art because I really think art is therapy no matter what. Art and no matter what kind of art, music, acting, it's all therapy. It's all a way to communicate to a deeper level of yourself and to have that part of yourself communicate with others in a way that you can do that best. And I think that, I mean, like, and when I say kids, I mean like high school kids, teenagers, and even then like anybody of any age. I think that working in a medium that you feel at home in, or even when you don't, just a way that's expressive and creative is inherently just like healing. And productive too, and thoughtful as well.
Yeah, and that's that's sort of why we have this podcast is because everyone that we want to get in has a creative output in one way or another, and it's just a matter of sort of sitting down and talking with people and finding out what their creative output is, how they got to it, even things like talking about people's backgrounds and where they came from. Because, you're going to have some people that are going to have like really, really rough backgrounds. Then you're going to have some people that didn't really have much going on in their life at all. They've just kind of gone do. And I think because everyone's so incredibly different, creativity can kind of be a constant no matter what. Going through a hard time, be creative. Going through a good time, be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just communicating with that I guess that inner you, I guess.
So I want to sort of take an opportunity to sort of ask you a question that I think will probably resonate with the majority of, if not all, creatives as a whole. The creative engine. What drives a creative to actually be creative? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on that for sure.
We've got time.
Well, that's good because I will talk until you stop me from talking.
Okay, and go.
Okay. So yeah, I actually I have a comic in the drafts, which may or may not ever happen, as with many of my comics in the drafts, about my how I relate to art and creating as an entity, and I just think it's a really interesting subject, honestly, about like where that comes from in someone and about why they create, what makes them feel like they have to, because a lot of people have to, and I unfortunately have been discovering lately that I'm one of those people. And I say unfortunately because there was quite a few times, especially in these past few years, where I just considered maybe not giving up art entirely, but pretty much packing up and moving on from that part of my life. But now, I guess on the other side of that, whatever that is, I kind of am realizing that I couldn't do that because that's been my whole life.
Your identity is kind of wrapped up in your art,
very
right?
much so.
Yeah. Okay.
And not just in my art, but in creating as itself. And I bring up the comic because what really struck me, I had this I now understand what people say when they had an epiphany. I thought it was very melodramatic, but I had an epiphany.
Okay. Yeah.
I had one myself.
Yep.
And I know it was an epiphany because I was it was several days of just intense realization, and I was going to bed and waking up every morning with tears in my eyes just thinking about this, which is not an experience typical of me. I'm not a big crier. I'm not a big mushy person. And I realized I had this realization that art and creating in general has been with me for so long.
Yeah.
And I realized that it almost felt like a relationship that I've had my whole life, like thinking about someone who falls in love with their childhood best friend, in that it's been rocky like a relationship, and it's been healthy and unhealthy like a relationship, and there have been times where I'm that's it, I'm gonna walk away. I can't take whatever heartache this is bringing, and then moments after that where it's you look back on the years and years you've spent together and you realize that no, I want to make this work. And I was it would be so sad, so unbelievably sad for me to, at this point in my life, 24, 25 years old, to take those 2 decades of 2 or more decades of creating and be not honor it. And I think honor is the right word because, like I said, I've been creating as long as I've been alive. There are probably times in my life before I have memories that I was creating because I don't remember a time when I wasn't. Some of my earliest memories are making clay dragons, heaps of them, over and over and over again.
Yeah, sure.
And it was just one thing or another. Whether it was I don't know, making sculptures out of branches and what is the purple flower that hangs down everywhere and it's really, really beautiful?
Lavender?
The hanging one.
Oh, I don't know. If creativity was using plants, I would suck. That would probably be that, and drawing would be the 2 ones that I'm terrible at.
Can we edit in the name of the plant afterwards?
Can we find the name of the plant? Let's just put it up as a text. Thank you very much. Just talking to my editors, by the way. I'll do that later on. There we go. Thumbs up. Yep. Insert name.
It's a really
there.
common plant. I feel really dumb.
Yeah.
Wisteria. God damn it.
Wisteria. There we go.
Anyway.
Yeah.
we had this huge wisteria plant, and I would like weave. What's a rose? I would like weave vines of it into these like cool sculptures, which is how I found out that I'm allergic to wisteria later on. But
right.
you know,
That's
anything. I would find, art and creativity, and even we had these I think they were actually dragonfly larvae in our creek, and they're known for building their casings. They're like pupa chrysalises out of different beautiful stones that they find in the creeks. There are people that I found out about people using them to make jewelry, putting them into flowing water with little amethyst pebbles and all that, and they would weave together these beautiful. It's gorgeous if you want to look it up. And I was so inspired by that I went out and collected just ones made out of rocks and made stuff with them.
Wow.
And so here I am, like looking back at I'm like, I have never not been doing this, whether I have an instrument in my hands, whether I'm on stage, whether I'm singing I'm a singer. I'm a massive singer all the time. Singing constantly, drawing, painting. Like, I'm like, how could I, like, I was in tears and so emotional over it because I was like, I felt like I was hurting someone I had known my whole life. I felt like I was turning to a person who was so near and dear to me that I had known for so many years and being like, I don't care about you anymore. And just for that, I was like, no, clearly there's a reason why I can't stop doing this. And I say can't stop because this recovery from all this has been really intense and really, really like physically taxing for me in a pretty serious life altering way. And even through that, I've like made like a pair of pants and done like weaving and embroidery, and I'm like, why? I just can't stop.
But that's I wonder if that becomes, as you said, you give creativity an entity. Essentially, you make it a being, and you go, okay, cool. So I need creativity, and creativity needs me. It's very much a cohabitation type thing, and you're in a position now where you go, all right, cool. So we were going to split up, and it was going to be a messy split, and I'd have been heartbroken. But you've decided to sort of reconcile, and now you're ready to move that relationship onto the next stage, which is going to school, going to art school.
And it's interesting too because it all felt very serendipitous, and this was kind of happening in like December, January. The surgery I had was unannounced until 2-3 weeks before it, as our surgeries here, and altered the entire course of my life, maybe. For in many ways, but during that December, January period, I was like because I had applied and gotten into different art schools back home.
Yes. Oh wow!
As an 18-year-old.
Oh, of course. Yeah. You said
SCAD and Ringling. Yeah. And I would have loved to go, but when I was applying, I was very 18-year-old, and I was like, I'm gonna do illustration, and that's it. I know what I'm gonna do. Sure. Like I hadn't. I mean, I guess I hadn't fully fallen for the trap of this is my style. I'm only going to do this. But I was like, this is my niche. And now looking back at that, I'm like, what an idiot. What do you mean this is my niche? You're 18. What are you talking about?
You haven't figured out what your niche is.
And at this point, I'm like, screw it. I'm going to be by far the oldest person in my class. I'm gonna come into it with no major. I'm going to, on purpose, do my whole first year doing as wide a variety of things, like my art classes on a bigger scale as I can. Definitely. Because I'm like, back then I'm like, I would have looked at fashion design and been like, I'm not gonna be a fashion. I know I'm not gonna be a fashion designer, so I'm not even gonna give it the time of day. At this point, I'm like,
why not?
What if I like it?
Yeah.
What if I do stuff with textiles and I'm like, this is so cool. I want to do this.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know unless I tried.
Well, and that's sort of one of the things I said earlier, where you started off versus where you may end up. That journey itself can often be incredibly fascinating because, you, as you said, you were like, I'm going to be an illustrator. at 18.
Whatever that means,
Yeah,
honestly. Being an
God,
illustrator
whatever.
is so
God,
vague.
that's
It's like, what are you going to
yeah.
do? Are you going to make children's books?
Yeah, I'm going to be an illustrator. No, I'm going to walk down the road.
Yeah.
Just vague as anything. And where you're at now, but you may get to art school and you
Not
might
to knock
go,
children's books, by the way. I still think-
children's.
I want to do children's books.
I love children's books. But you may get to art school and go, yeah, textiles and fabrics. That's my life.
Who
and
knows?
then 10 years down the track, you might be Fox Levine.
I mean, do photography. Who knows?
It's the thing. You don't know, but it's completely different from where you,
Exactly.
as 18-year-old
Yeah.
Fox, was going, I only want to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just like, I have these people that I look up to online, and they're doing this, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Because, it's just like several people, several adults in my life, not within the school, told me the worst advice that I've ever gotten, which is they can't teach you anything at art school that you don't already know. Which is not true for anybody at any age, anywhere.
Yeah.
And even if I was already really skilled, that's not all you get from school. What you can get from school, even if you're not going to like a fancy big name American art school where you're going to meet people from Cartoon Network execs or whatever.
Yeah.
You meet people who are different from you and people with different perspectives, and you have critique from other people you don't know, and you're working with things that you're not used to. That's invaluable, whoever you are at any stage of your life. That's like the value of learning and teaching and sharing that with others.
Yeah. And everyone like having different discipline strengths
Exactly,
as well. You might be strong here, but sort of weaker in some other areas, and you might have someone who's stronger in those areas. And it's really about co-learning, and the sharing of knowledge, which is So, you're obviously off to art school, and you talked about working on a graphic novel, comic.
No, it's
comic.
Not big enough to be like.
Okay, so
I work on a lot of little comics.
Yeah.
They're called. I guess I don't know if they're technically called this, but one-offs is how I know them.
One-offs.
Yeah, which is just like you'll see that phrase tossed around a lot on the internet. It's just like anywhere between 4 to 20 pages of just I don't know. I just made this and I'm just posting this here, and it's not published.
Right.
It's self. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could just be a social media post.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like a visual journal for me when I do that.
Where can people find your eclectic range of art? I say eclectic.
Gosh, that's a weak point of mine. My strong points are making the stuff when I can get to making it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty inconsistent lately. My weak points are remembering that I have to tell people that I'm doing it. And so I have
now.
I have a just a website which we can link to where you can see just a portfolio of my work. I have one where you can contact me to do sort of like commissions that I've been doing since I was 13. Not the same kind, but
Yeah, we've advanced from the
But I mean the same
animals,
thing. Same thing I've done from you, where it's just like
yeah.
you would come to me and be like, "Hey, I like the look of your art. I want you to draw a portrait of my family in your style. Can you do that?" Or my pet just died. Can you do a little commemorative, nice drawing of my pet? Or even honestly, I'd be even open to doing stuff like right now I'm actually designing some characters that may or may not go on to be in some kind of animated something. I don't know. I'm just designing the characters.
Very cool.
But I'm having a good time with that.
What's the website?
Oh gosh,
hang on.
I have a few.
Yep, hit us with all of them.
It's foxlevine.weebly.com, and I am not paying Weebly to take the Weebly out of it.
No, fair enough.
It's just a Weebly site.
Okay.
And I have a Twitter as well, but it's very unprofessional. I'm on Facebook too.
Yeah.
Which is my name, Fox Levine. Gosh, I'm contactable through all those places. They all kind of lead back to me in some way or another.
Sure.
I think I right now exist more of just if you want to see what I do, there's several places that you can see it. If you like it enough to want to make that connection with me and you want me to make something for you, then come and have a chat with me. But I've never been the kind of person to sort of make things to sell or just things to be consumed. I guess I either make things because I have to make things and I want to share them with people, or I like to make things for people.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's more for your own personal joy and pleasure as opposed to financial gain. If there is a financial gain out of it,
hopefully,
then
yeah.
Yeah, if you can make a buck or two, why not?
Yeah.
But
I
it's
guess,
not your intention.
well, no, I mean, like, one day maybe, but like, I think more just personal, and it's the exact same thing with my style too. I'm not going to be the kind of person that's going to be like, here's a bunch of coasters with this drawing of mine on it, which is totally a fine way to do it. I don't really make merchandise. I make things to the specification of the client that I'm working with, and I really enjoy that relationship too. I really love working, especially, I don't know, it's fun working with both artists and non-artists, because oftentimes I'll be drawing either someone or someone they know, in a portrait, or I will be drawing characters that they have or designing characters for them.
Sure.
And it's so fun to work with people who aren't really artists themselves to bring what they are seeing in their head to life. That is such a fun feeling to me.
Yeah.
If regardless of if they're doing it on a more professional scale, or it's just like, I've had this character, Timothy the Wizard, since I was 12 and playing D&D. I've always wanted to have Timothy the Wizard summoned into life in a painting.
A visual representation, yeah.
And then to give that guy Timothy the Wizard,
Yeah.
It's characters and all that. It's just super fun for me. Yeah.
That's very cool. Fox Levine, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. Look, a wonderful, wonderful conversation, man. It's really cool because like you get to, like, we obviously know each other outside of being creative, and so much stuff that even I didn't know, and hopefully the viewers and the listeners at home, or when they're out and about on their phones or tablets or whatever, hopefully they gain some really cool insights, because I certainly know I have. It's been very, very cool. So thank you for taking the time to come and sit with me. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing your work.
Thank you so much.
Cool. Wow. Yeah, absolutely amazing. The cool thing about sitting down with artists is learning about them and working out who they are. And it's the whole point of a podcast like this, is trying to find out who people are, what their background is. And, as I said at the start of the episode, the, learning about Fox's journey and, how he went from, being mentored when he was in high school as a teacher through to becoming a tutor himself, and then mentoring other kids. So, it's cool. Swings and roundabouts. It's really, really nice. And how his perspective on things has changed as well, seeing why teachers did things a certain way when he was in high school, and using some of those tools now when he's tutoring. It's just great. I thought it was really, really awesome. So in the next few weeks, we're going to have some really, really cool guests coming out. We're going to have another podcast launched next week. So we're really, really stoked about that. Great artist, more, sort of a high profile artist as well, which is quite nice. And, we're in the process of booking a whole lot of guests at the moment. We're sort of trying to cover as wide a variety as possible. So how you as an artist can reach us if you're interested is you can contact us by email at hello@northlandartistsconversation.co.nz. My editor will put that up somewhere down there. You can reach out to us, and we're happy to certainly find a time and book a slot for you, and we can come in into the 5 Elements Media studio, and we can just sit down and talk. Because we've got time and space, and we want to talk with as many people as possible. Where can you find these podcasts? Well, we're on YouTube for the visuals. You can go to YouTube and search Northland Artists Conversation. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, also under Northland Artists Conversation as well. We are on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts, also under Northland Artists Conversation as well. We've started up a Patreon page where, if you are that way inclined and you want to give something back to this endeavor and this journey, you can search Patreon. And if you, again, search under Northland Artists Conversation as well, you'll find us there. We've got a couple of tiers. We have the first tier, which is a cup of coffee, so that's $5 a month. And what that means is it's just a little bit of support, just a little bit of help. That's really cool. And then we've also got the Coffee Addict, that I'm calling it, and that's $20 a month, so a little bit more. But you do get some other cool benefits and features as well. So if you're interested, have a look. It'd be really, really cool. We'd love to have your support. I want to thank my co-producer Andrew, who, as I said at the start, isn't here unfortunately. So we wish him well, and we hope to see him again really soon. I want to thank my entire team that helps make all of this possible. I want to thank Rocky and Catherine and Marino and Tane and everyone else that does a wonderful, wonderful job in bringing this all to life, because it's more than one person. It's just me, but I sit here and these guys make me look good. So thank you very much, everyone. Other than that, my name is Mark Kelly. Thank you very much, and wave to the camera, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks very much.